Eirozonu var uzskatīt gan par veiksmes stāstu, gan neveiksmi. Ir skaidrs, ka tai ir jāmainās, visticamāk veidojot vēl ciešākas saites. Tomēr Latvijas situācijā pievienošanās Eirozonai pat laban ir vislabākais risinājums. Tā intervijā Leta Video Londonā atzīst viens no ietekmīgākajiem pasaules ekonomikas žurnālistiem – Financial Times galvenais ekonomikas komentētājs Mārtiņš Vulfs.
It exists. It has survived. You might regard that as a success. It's a relatively stable store of value, so it has delivered the promise of stability in terms of its purchasing power, and it's been reasonably stable in world markets against other major currencies. There are people who want to join it. So you could say from these four criteria, the Eurozone and the Euro have been a success. At the same time, against this, you could point out that the members of the Eurozone have experienced enormous financial crises, that the Eurozone has had to be redesigned in the context of crisis in quite significant ways, that the redesign is not completed, clearly not completed, that a number of countries are suffering absolutely enormous depressions. There is no prospect of an early end to those depressions. It's going to be perhaps a decade before the economies are fully recovered. Unemployment rates are incredibly high. Politics is in stress, in extreme stress, and it's not clear whether new policy actions will come forward to save them. So in those respects, I would say, no, it's not really much of a success. I think as things are at the moment, with a highly competitive but essentially deflationary core with enormous surpluses and a relatively uncompetitive contracting periphery, the system is fundamentally dysfunctional. I tend to think of a sort of minimal federation, so it doesn't have to be the United States. I do think there has to be some support for countries in difficulty. There's no doubt about that. That has to ensure that they can continue to provide essential public services, which are politically necessary in modern European societies, and there has to be real support for the banking systems across the Eurozone. In the long run, having a stable currency against your major trading partners, when you're such a small country bound to integrate so profoundly with them, is probably, I would guess almost certainly, more valuable than the benefits of an adjustable currency, because in all probability every movement of the exchange rate is going to be passed through to domestic prices. You don't have a huge non-tradable sector whose prices and wages will be completely separated from those of the world. The country is simply too small, and even though it would perhaps be a little costly to preserve the currency, fixed currency in the crisis, the disadvantages of constantly yo-yoing exchange rates, the effect that would have on the traded goods sector, on competitiveness, on monetary stability is so large, I think it would be very unwise to go that way. So if I were advising Latvia, I would have advised them probably to do what they did. Differences in development don't matter if labour costs reflect those differences in development. So as long as wages don't get out of line with relative productivity, it's perfectly all right. I would tend to the view, again, I've argued this, Latvia's wages are still well below European levels. So provided Latvian workers work reasonably hard, which I'm sure they do, if somebody invests in Latvia, they can expect to export to, say, Germany. They can expect a more profitable operation, in all probability, than a similar investment elsewhere in the Eurozone. So Latvia still has opportunities for catch-up by bringing in the most modern forms of technology and managerial know-how